Are you going to do the video with me? You are? Do you like doing videos? Yeah, okay. Everybody likes seeing you. Everybody likes seeing you. Gonna hang out? Hi everyone. Welcome back to Novel Idea. My name is Dia, and today I am going to do a Friday Reads. Oh, you're gonna get on my lap and lie down, like it. So I have about 5 books that I completed this week, and then I'll go over what I'm in the middle of and what's up next. James and I still have not recorded our subscriber video. He is still feeling a little bit of the COVID fog, and so he's dragging his feet a little bit. I'm gonna push him a little bit to do it soon, but I am sorry that I keep promising and we keep putting it off. But if it was up to me, it would be done. I just want you to know that. So the first book that I completed this last week was Ballet Shoes by Noel Streatfeild. This was for the You've Got Mail-a-thon, and I really enjoyed this. This was a reread for me. However, I did not remember much about it other than I knew it was about 3, what I remembered as sisters. So in case you guys don't know, let me just go over this with you. Poppy's on my lap in case you're wondering what's going on down here. So this is about a man who is a collector, and he always comes home from a trip with something to add to his collections. He collects fossils. One time when he returns from a trip, it's with something very, very different. And what has happened is that he has been on a ship that has gone down, and just about everybody on the ship was lost at sea. And one of the only people that wasn't was Great Uncle Matthew. And so Great Uncle Matthew survives, and a baby is found floating. And so Great Uncle Matthew decides to adopt the baby. However, he has no wife, and the caretakers of his home and his fossils are his niece and his niece's nanny. So that's the first one. And over the course of the next couple of chapters, he manages to collect 2 more babies, and they all end up as his wards. He kind of disappears at one point. Nobody is sure if he's alive or dead. And in the meantime, his niece and the nanny are raising these 3 girls who he calls his fossils. And it is just basically about them growing up and about their loves and how they find those passions in life, and how they also grow in love for one another, even though they have no relation to each other at all. And it was lovely. I thoroughly enjoyed reading this again. I gave this an A-, and that is just simply because it is so typical of a middle grade book. And it's typical in the fact that it's just a sweet story. You know the outcomes are going to be good. You don't have any fear that you're losing anybody. There's no high stakes or anything like that. But it's still a beautiful story, and I would highly, highly recommend it to anyone who has young girls especially. So that is Ballet Shoes by Noel Streatfeild. A- from me. This was a 93% and I loved it. Okay, and then the next one that I read was also for the You've Got Mail-a-thon, and the prompt for this one was something that takes place in a bookstore or a library, and this was I'd Rather Be Reading. And this is a nonfiction, and she writes a blog, and she has basically taken all these years of writing this blog and doing a podcast and some other things, along with her education in literature, just kind of has presented this idea that we have these preconceived notions of what it means to be a reader. And are we a true connoisseur of literature if we're not reading this kind of book, or if we also enjoy this kind of book? It was just kind of saying, listen, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter what you read, as long as you are reading, you are a reader, and as long as it's bringing you joy, then it is the right book for you to be reading at the time. And I loved it. I just thought it was fabulous. So again, I couldn't recommend it highly enough. That was I'd Rather Be Reading, and I cannot remember who it's by. So picture, oh, by the way, this is not wine. Jillian, it's not wine. This is kombucha in a wine glass. All right, so next, I wrapped up a series, you guys. There's a duology, and the first one is Firstborn, second one is Wildbound. And I loved this series. Elayne Audrey Becker is the author. It's kind of a YA series, I guess, but it doesn't have as much of the angst and the youth struggles, I guess, that a lot of YA novels have. And so this one feels much more adult in the fact that they are fighting for a rooted cause, and they are fighting for one another, and they are fighting for a people. So it takes place in a kingdom that there is a sickness happening, and the sickness is due to the land dying because magic is not wandering about throughout the land. And there are people that are magic born, and then there are just the regular humanity. And the magic born have kind of been pushed aside and pushed into specific areas. And so because they are not wandering about throughout the land and touching the land and bringing about, so it's almost like Green Witch kind of thing, but they are shapeshifters, they are naiads and dryads and that kind of magical creature also. And so they need to be moving in the land and making sure that the magic is healthy, because humans are dying because the magic is trying to live within them and they are not magic born. and it's killing them. So anyway, that's kind of the idea of the story. I, again, really loved this duology, and I gave this an A-. So this is a 92%. And then I read a really short, really quick, for shorty September, book called Lost Gargoyle of Paris. And this is by Gigi Pandian? Pandini? Padlin? I don't remember exactly. I'm going to put a picture up. But I read the first book in this series during Faustathon, not knowing that it was a Faustian story, and was pleasantly surprised by that. And so this one is kind of like a 0.5 kind of beginning to the story, or filler in the story. And I thought it was sweet. I really liked it. They all have a little bit of a cozy mystery vibe to them, and I just really enjoyed it. I was glad to be back with them, and they are characters that I really like. They're funny, they are just really smart, and there's cooking involved. So I'm always happy when there's a gargoyle chef around. This I gave a solid B. It was 87%, and I really enjoyed it. So that was the Lost Gargoyle of Paris. All right, and then the final book that I completed this week was The Light of Uncommon Stars. And this was a recommendation from Angela at Literature Science Alliance. And she read this book, I don't know if it was for the Hugo Awards or the Nebula. I think it was the Nebula Awards. But anyway, she was reading this book as kind of a project of the nominees for one of the awards for science fiction. And this completely takes place on Earth. It just happens to have a family of aliens involved in it. I read this because she loved it so much, and she did warn me ahead of time that there were some things in it that were not graphic, but they were there. And this is the perfect example of why I have a hard time reading modern literature of any kind. If it's modern, it's going to have, most likely, going to have sexual activity, language, and then usually some sort of abuse. And this was no different. So Angela warned me that it was at the beginning of the book, but that it wasn't like intricate and continuous throughout this story. And I will say that it was worse at the beginning of the book, but it is continuous through the story. And I think that that's probably partly because I'm just overly sensitive to it. However, I want to say that I loved the storyline. I wish that it would have left out the cussing. I wish that it would have left out the abuse. I wish it would have left out and I'm not saying leave it out as far as not making it part of the story. I'm saying let's not present it in a way that is disturbing and scary and that kind of thing. I can read about characters who have gone through these things without having to hear about about it in detail. And it wasn't super detailed. It wasn't a play-by-play, but it was enough to where I was just so uncomfortable. And I almost DNF'd it, but I didn't want to. I wanted to actually read this and be able to know why Angela loved it so much, because I just love Angela. I love the way that she talks about books. I love her she just effuses joy about books and what she loves about them. This was a story of a young man who is transgender, and so he's becoming a girl, and he refers to himself as a girl. So the home life of this girl is not good because her parents are angry at the fact that this is their son who will not be their son. And there's abuse that happens in the home as a result of that. She is also a virtuoso on violin. She does not know that. She doesn't feel that she is a virtuoso. She just knows that she loves it and that she hears music and it comes out of her. And so she ends up running away, and in running away, there is selling herself for sex so that she can get money, and there's living with people who steal from her and who take advantage of her, and just all of this before life becomes good. Even after life becomes good, though, this is still an issue, and it's still talked about, and it's still part of who she is. And I get that, but it's not talked about as part of who she is. It's talked about in ways that are very forward, very in your face. This is also a Faustian story. When I say Faustian, what I mean is somebody has made a deal with the devil. It's talked about very early on in the book, and so you know that this is happening. But I knew how things were going to play out. But there are little things about this book that I adored. And some of those things are the relationships that are happening and the found family that comes about. The aliens themselves are very heartwarming. Every character in this book you like. Of course, you don't like the devil character, but everybody else in this book, you kind of wonder at times whether you should like them, but the main characters in this book, you just like. You are rooting for all of them. So anyway, all of that to say, this was a B read for me. The writing is absolutely wonderful as far as stylistically and the descriptions and the world and the character development and all of that. Wonderful. If it wasn't for the just jarring, wrenching things that are said and that are wrapped up in the story, I would have given it a higher grade. And that's me. That's not I mean, it is the book, but it's my enjoyment of it that brought it down. And so, yeah, like I said, this was a B read, and that was an 83%. So that is everything that I completed this week, you guys. Now, I am in the middle of The Lost Spells by Robert MacFarlane, and this is poems, little short stories, snippets of quotes, that kind of thing, and spells. And it is beautifully, beautifully illustrated by Jackie Morris. It's just gorgeous, you guys. There's not a single page in here that I didn't just hover over. Look at these. They're gorgeous. So anyway, I'm right there in the book. And so that one I am in the middle of. And then I also have Emperor's Soul by Brandon Sanderson. This is for Shorty September. It's a short story, and I had never read it. I heard about it from Patrick on his channel, and I thought, I'm gonna grab that up. It'll be perfect for Shorty September, and I love Sanderson. And I thought that I'd pretty much read everything, but I guess not. And then I also have Stone of Farewell. This is Tad Williams' second book in the Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn trilogy. And so I'm working my way through series. And this one I'm really excited about. So that one. And then I'm also reading for Shorty September a book by Zora Neale Hurston, and this is called Magnolia Flower. And I found it while I was searching for something else and thought this is perfect, and I love Zora Neale Hurston. So gotta read that one. And then the last one that I am going to be picking up is Our Village, and this is by Mary Russell Mitford. Beautifully illustrated also, and I am very excited to be reading it and going through it. So those are the books that for sure I am going to be picking up, and the ones that I'm in the middle of, and the ones that I have finished. So that's everything. Are we all done, Poppy? Are we finished? Yeah? Do you want to say goodbye? Thanks for joining me today, everyone. Like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you in the next video. My good girl.